Tony, with you. Okay, J.J. McCarthy out of spring ball. It was thought to be a situation in which he would need to have surgery. That is not the case. He should be back in July. I don't know if that's basically like having the arm in a sling on a shelf, just light tossing in July, or ready to roll at the end of July for August camp to compete for the starting quarterback spot. Just your thoughts about a quarterback situation and battle that we've all been anticipating at Michigan, between kind of a Georgia version of Michigan, where you got the incumbent starter that everyone wants to push to the side for a 5-star, but McCarthy versus McNamara.
I think not having McCarthy able to go this spring saves them from losing a quarterback after spring. So that's good. There's no competition this spring. So there's not one guy who feels like he's been replaced. So, you know, if McCarthy can't practice, he can't beat McNamara. If he can't practice, he can't be beaten out. So it's you take that battle into the fall, and where he is, you know, he's gonna have to play some catch up now. And you would have thought by the end of spring he would have been caught up. I think maybe by the end of last season he had caught up, and so when there's no spring for him, that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. But I think it's actually probably a benefit, and that means they get to keep both guys through the season. Then you get into the season, and does it create an issue if you know, there's some controversy? But I don't know with that schedule when that controversy would happen, because it's very easy with the non-conference stuff. So Cade McNamara is going to look great. J.J. McCarthy is going to look great. And then what happens in Big Ten play with their first game at Iowa in the Big Ten, or their second Big Ten game at Iowa? What happens there? And yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing that he can't go this spring, because it delays everything almost a year basically. And some of the stuff that could have happened this spring now will have to take place after the season or next spring, with just the competition. Where one guy loses, you get the Joe Burrow, Dwayne Haskins thing. That might be put off until next year.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for them that you're not going to get to see the best of McCarthy this spring, and perhaps he would be a guy that would be in position to start the season as their starter, and where that would leave McNamara is anybody's guess, but it looks like it's McNamara's job for now. And as Tony said, McCarthy will need to get healthy first and then make up a bunch of ground in the preseason to try and supplant him. And maybe by midseason they will. But again, that's their problem. I think quarterback is a position where they're reasonably solid with those two guys. They've got a lot of other positions across the board where they lost so much talent that they're going to have to reload, and I'm not sure that they've got the depth, the kind of caliber depth that they need to win the Big Ten again this coming year. So without disqualifying Ohio State from the discussion at all, I just don't think Michigan's going to be anywhere near as good this coming year as they were last year. So I guess we'll roll that ball down the line and see how it looks in the fall. But I think quarterback's probably the least of their problems up there, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, Tony brought up a good point. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Michigan football, but I also don't write a Monday piece on that team. So, but it's interesting because it does kind of delay D-Day up there in terms of you have these two quarterbacks, both of them, certainly McNamara saw the lion's share of the activity. McCarthy certainly came in and had his successes. You would think that one would just, especially with the mobility that the portal has given everybody, one's going to just say, I'm out of here. Now you delay it through the spring and you get into the summer, and when does McCarthy get healthy? And then you sit there and you get into the season, and you just normally don't leave mid-season unless it's in a huff and you're throwing your gloves into the stands and things along those lines. So, you never want to sit there and look at this type of situation and say, well, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst thing in the world. You feel bad for McCarthy, be it if he's at your school, he's at your biggest rival school. You don't want to see a kid going through an injury or anything. But, for Michigan in the biggest of pictures, this may be a way that they could ride with both of these quarterbacks going through this year, whereas it looked like we were on a collision course for one or the other maybe seeing their way out.
The other thing that hit me from Michigan camp right out of the gate, and the Wolverines are on the practice field and have been for about a week to 10 days. Nothing super controversial here, but Jim Harbaugh a little bit more verbose than he's been in the past, emboldened by this Big Ten championship and a win over Ohio State, saying that Michigan is scary good. I've stated this like 18 times, and I still kind of chuckle after it. Not that they're not a good program, they get talent, they get a good team, but scary good. After they stepped off the field against Georgia with that type of performance, and he's selling us minus Aiden Hutchinson, Daxton Hill, Hassan Haskins on down the line, selling us on scary good.
I think a definition of
public, or is he saying that to just embolden himself? I don't know.
Is he convincing himself? Yes, trying to convince himself. Scary good could also be a way that we used to describe a guy like Steve Bellisari, who was good in practice and looked good, but then was not good in games. That's scary good. That's the scary good. You don't know what you're going to get in a game. That's scary. You're good, but it's scary. And maybe that's what Michigan is. They might look good in practice, but you don't know what you're going to get in the game. And like I said, their schedule is very easy. So they've only got like 3 or 4 really tests this year. So even if they're 10-2, like after a regular season, I guess if you're going to talk yourself up, this is the schedule to do it with.
Anything else on Harbaugh? He mentioned a national championship. Like he has spoken the words national championship. I don't know that he's done that in 7 years at Michigan. I've never heard it come out of his mouth before, unless maybe he was directly asked. But, he made it very clear, gunning for a national championship.
Well, I mean, he shouldn't come out and say, well, we're going to suck. I mean, I don't think that that's really the way you do it. I mean, maybe you don't pop off as much if you're not, if you don't know what you have, but certainly emboldened. I mean, they did get the win against their rival, Ohio State, last year. So there's going to be a little bit of chirping that's going on there. But then again, too, some of that chirping, I think that, Ohio State already has little posters going on some of the things that are coming out of Ann Arbor that are kind of pointed at Ohio State. So I don't know. Say less. Leave the chirping to trained professionals on that kind of stuff. I mean, listening to a Harbaugh interview sometimes seriously is like going through a root canal with no pain medication. It's just a terrible experience, but whatever.